Hello and welcome to another episode of Cram, Sesh here on Push Your Glasses Up. I am Mikey. Today we are going over Jurassic Park, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in the lead up to Jurassic World Dominion, which we will have an episode on this coming Monday, actually. Today I am joined by an old friend of mine from the surface industry days, Ryan Wilson. We actually saw the 3D re-release for the anniversary of Jurassic Park together. When that was in theaters, and still one of very few times that I have thoroughly enjoyed 3D was on that version of that movie. Before we get into the discussion about these many dinosaur movies, many movies with dinosaurs, but also many dinosaurs within those movies, if you enjoy these videos, these podcasts, we do have them in audio only on your favorite podcast provider. Also, plenty of trailer reactions here on this channel as well, if you're into those. And I also put out a video the other day that goes over themes in The Lost World that I think go under-discussed. So check out that episode of review as well. But for now, let's get into this one. Hey Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hi Mikey. Happy to be here.
It's been a very long time.
It has been.
But yeah, we're here to talk about the many Jurassic movies that are not Dominion. So, real quick, what is your history with this long running franchise?
So, I think it starts where it starts for a lot of, boys and girls who are kids who love dinosaurs. And then I was 4.5 or 5 when my sister took me to see Jurassic Park in the theater, which was definitely something that I was raised by a single parent. I don't think if my mom had been around would have been cool, but she was like, screw it, I'm taking my 5-year-old brother to see Jurassic Park. And that, really kind of like solidified my obsession with dinosaurs as a child. And then I just like, in my mind, like, I will pay any amount of money to see dinosaurs do stuff on a movie screen. It's kind of where I'm at. Like, plot irrelevant. I just want to see like a really big screen with a bunch of crazy things happening that involve what I assumed dinosaurs look like, or what people assume dinosaurs look like. So like, I've seen, I think, all 5 of these in the theater. And definitely seeing the 6th one here next week.
Yeah, you will be back to talk about that one with me as well. I'm
going to see it before that, and then I'm going to go see it again. I have since introduced it to my niece and nephew, who are
beautiful,
15 and 10. So,
oh god, I just time traveled because they were.
Yeah, I don't think I had a niece when we worked together.
They were babies. Yeah. Because we met when it was 2010.
Yep.
When I started working at CBC. My history with the franchise, similar, although I have like 3.5 years on you. So yeah. I was more of the prime age for this movie. Or the first one anyway. And it was me and a couple of friends from the neighborhood. One of their dad brought us. And it was a life-changing experience for me. You and I did actually see one of these movies together. We saw the 3D re-release of the first movie together.
Correct.
And like you said, we paid any price for it. It was.
If they could re-release it this weekend, and I would pay to go see that movie. And I watched it like to prep, like maybe 5 days ago. I watched it. I was I told my partner, I was like, if this was re-released in the theater, I would go pay to see it right now.
Oh, absolutely. We did pay any amount to see it though, because we saw it at the Boston Common IMAX theater, and it was like almost $25, and that was years ago. So yeah. But yeah, let's move on from there and go straight into this first movie, which is like, I mean, sure, what can you say? Jurassic Park is one of the greatest movies of all time. The series as a whole, it has its up and downs, but like There is always this North Star of a perfect movie that
I I
yeah.
always when I talk to people about why I love that movie, it's if Steve it's like Steven Spielberg got the opportunity to remake Jaws in a way with a slight variation, and he
Yep.
was like, I'm gonna take a perfect movie and make it more perfect. Like he was like, this movie's perfect, but I'm gonna do this again with dinosaurs, and it's gonna be like, in my opinion, like slightly better because like you watch Jaws now and you're like, the shark looks
It shows its
like it's
age.
from the
This movie
70s.
does show its age a
I
little
watched
bit.
Jurassic Park last week, and
Yeah.
the T Rex still looks like it would bite my head off if I was in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
In 4K, uh, you can see the comp a little bit more, but it
yeah,
is still like I was saying before, it's like the North Star of this is how you need things to look like they're in the same plane of existence.
definitely. And it's been really interesting. Reading a lot of stuff on like Empire, like where they're interviewing like the original trio who are in the sequel now about like what their thoughts were looking back and stuff like that. And like I think Sam Neill was talking about how like they just don't make movies like this anymore. Like it's like front to like you start with action, you eat action for lunch, and then you have action for lunch and for dinner,
Yeah.
and like nothing happens, like nothing really happens in this movie for like 45 minutes. It's all just build up, and then it's just like insanity for like this act, whatever,
It's
two,
yeah,
t-
it's a
three.
first half, second half instead of
Yeah,
act 1, act 2, act 3.
yeah.
Um
It. I mean, like every line in this movie could be a T-shirt. Like, uh, actors who like were not necessarily huge stars, but like got turned into huge stars. Like,
I
I
would
think of those.
say this is how Sam Jackson broke out
Yeah,
before. I
yeah.
mean, Pulp Fiction really after this was the
But like
bigger breakout, but like this is
everyone knew he was the hold on to your butts guy after this
exactly.
movie
Yeah.
for like a half a decade probably.
Yeah.
And
And like
it's
Laura
just
Dern was doing like Lynch stuff, but like
yeah. No, I mean like they
not as
became
much
all these
mainstream.
people became even like Nedry like I'm sorry, I'm
Well, he
blanking
was
on the actor's name. Who
Wayne
was
Knight.
Newman?
Yeah,
Yeah, Wayne Knight
he
was
was already
Newman,
Newman,
but
and
we
that's how
like, oh
everyone
shit,
knew him.
Newman's in this movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it was
eh,
like his main stuff at that point was Seinfeld, this, and then Basic Instinct. He was
yeah,
in that. He was in the most famous scene of Basic Instinct. But yeah, it's kind. Well, we say that, but then like the kids never broke out in a way that was like the rest of
yeah,
the cast. But like I would say Joe Mazzello has had some fairly huge roles. I mean, he was in The Social Network, he was in The Pacific, and yeah,
yeah.
was it The
It,
Pacific or
it,
the Band of Brothers? It was
I think
Pacific, I think.
I
Yeah,
think it was Pacific.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
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 all
definitely like
blends together.
well, it's funny to me because like I think it's very like Spielbergian to like these all like there's always kids, right? There's like even like the Lost World, like
Pernicious kids. There's always
yeah,
yeah.
there's and like it this movie more than the other ones is less about it and more about like just like hey like I mean like weirdly like especially given recently like the last few years like movies about capitalism
Mm-hmm.
and like there's like these like right now it's billionaires going to space and like in the 90s it was like I'm gonna make a theme park with dinosaurs like that's
Yeah.
like Michael Crichton's vision, right? And like like it just hits. It still hits. Like they're eating the ice cream in the scene at the end, and he's like talking about what like his vision, and you're just like, dude, you're like an asshole billionaire who like wanted like who had this vision and didn't think things through. Like the as an adult now, like 'cause it was all about like the raptors in the kitchen and like the T-Rex scene, which is still iconic, and like now I'm like when she's talking about like the plants that are poisonous and you're like wow they really like we're just like ooh money 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 like you know what I mean
Yep.
like
They spared
it's
no
it's
expense.
really interesting
Yeah, they
but I mean like I don't know if you ever listened there's a podcast on Spotify from the Ringer called the Rewatchables. They
I have
do
not.
this they have these conversations about these movies that are just rewatchable. That like if it's on TNT
Right.
and you see it's on TNT, like The Fugitive was on the other night.
You leave it
I was
on.
like, it was literally
Yeah.
halfway through, and I was like, we will watch the entirety of it. We will watch the rest of this movie. And like they have all these questions, whatever. It's a great podcast, check it out. But like this movie is like the quintessential rewatchable for me. Like it does not matter where we are. It could be right when they're entering the park. It could be right when the T-Rex gets out. It could be like the opening scene is one of the best opening scenes
Yep.
ever.
It
Like
almost doesn't fit the rest of the movie.
yeah,
Like visually speaking, it's almost like when the first Spider-Man movie was coming out and they shot that trailer of like the bank robbery where like it doesn't feel like it's part of the same movie. It feels like
right.
a different cinematographer or somebody different was directing it. Like it has a different vibe to it.
The opening scene of The Dark Knight's the same vibe. You're like, and they released it before the movie
Yeah.
came out. And I remember I like Batman Begins, but I wasn't like super hype on it. And then like the trailer for The Dark Knight came out, and it was like this like 6 minute scene of the Joker
The
like
IMAX
killing all the other
special thing,
Jokers,
yeah.
and it was just like, what is this movie like? And like, I think that's something that Spielberg really excels at is like these opening, like because Jaws is the same way. Like you're hooked, and then he does this thing.
It's the rule of like a book needs to have an opening sentence,
Exactly.
and Spielberg is able to do that with a scene. It's
Yeah.
he makes a splash.
And you're just like you can sit through 45 minutes of build up because you're like what the hell just happened in the first
yeah,
5 minutes of this movie?
because this
And then,
movie,
I mean,
yeah,
you
this
know,
movie
like,
does.
we'll
This
do,
movie starts three times.
Yeah,
There's three different entry points of this movie.
yeah. I mean, it's great. It little there's not a like it's like I said, it's a slow burn to start, but it's not slow. Like
Yeah,
things are happening. You're introduced like you know who Malcolm is within 30 seconds of meeting Malcolm. Like you know that the like all of these characters, like you know who they are. Like all the introductions are just pitch perfect.
yep,
Like it like you said it was perfect. It's a perfect movie. It is this is a like I'm not gonna say it's like an iconic film. Like it's like one of the best films ever made, but I'm gonna tell you that like
no,
going and
it
seeing
is
this
that.
movie in the theater is a quintessential experience.
Yeah,
Like I remember it. I remember all of it, and this was almost 20 years for me now. You know, like
yeah.
this was I mean 93. Like we're coming up on 20 years, right?
No,
30 years.
we're well
Coming
over.
up on 30
Yeah.
years now. And I remember like when the only part I was really scared is when Lex is trying to close the oven and the
Right.
raptor like runs into the other oven and you think it's her. Like that was the only part I was scared, and I remember like scene for scene, like watching this as like a 5-year-old. It's like the fact that that stuck with me for so long. It's an incredible movie, and like just shout out to the special effects people.
Yeah.
Like it's like nothing should look this good this old.
Stan Winston and ILM were able to bring together like the two industries of physical and digital in a way that like this is the movie that changed shit. Like it's
Yeah,
you can go back to like yeah, Star Wars of course changed stuff
absolutely.
and The Abyss with James Cameron, and James Cameron continues to like push stuff forward. He's pushing stuff way more forward now than he ever did back then, I would say, even with like T-1000 and stuff. But like it's like you were saying with the capitalism thing, I think that the themes of this movie actually end up outlasting even like I was saying how like yeah now that it's like upgraded to 4K you can kind of like see the things and like that's nitpicking but like
It's a little rough now,
yeah
but
like
like it still hits. That scene hits.
yeah it still totally works, it's totally fine. It's nitpicking to say that like it doesn't stick out as much or it sticks out a little bit, but like the themes in the background is what makes this movie have the longevity. And of course like and I say this a little bit of wordplay, but like the themes in the music as well are like it's
I was gonna say the other thing is like John Williams remains undefeated. Like
yeah, this is like as much as I am like a lifelong Star Wars kid, like I whatever, this is his quintessential
I think this is
soundtrack.
I also like as also a Star Wars kid. I saw the re-releases in theaters. I saw all the prequels. I saw the sequels the day ever they came out. like like Vader's theme is, I think, his best like single piece, but as like a whole, like as a suite, as like a, oh, I'm gonna listen, like I'm walking to work today, I'm gonna listen to like the abridged like everything version.
Yeah,
Like Jurassic Park is the best one. Like I'm
yeah,
sorry, like
by far.
um
But yeah, so I think like we so much has been said about this movie that like I think we pretty much said everything we can that people haven't
it's perfect.
heard or whatever.
It,
So let's
I don't have a complaint. It's
yeah,
like I can like really nitpick with the other ones, and this one
right.
I'm like, play this at my funeral. Like it's incredible, you
Yeah.
know?
So let's go on to the Lost World, which
Okay.
I actually just this time frame here just put out a video that is a not so much a defense of that movie, but a spotlight of like the themes of that movie. But I will defend that movie to the death. I love the Lost World, and I know a lot of people really hammer on it, but like,
We'll have some nits to pick for
oh
sure.
yeah,
Like gymnastic raptor fight. I still find that hard to swallow. But
hey,
like
to
the
this day, she's the only human to have killed a raptor.
until the new one probably it looks like, but we'll see.
Yeah,
There are scenes in that movie that are as good as any scene in the first movie. Like the cliff assault with the T-Rexes is fucking insane. It's
yeah.
so good. Um, the long grass like raptor scene is insane.
That's him.
Like
That's Spielberg getting to
yeah,
redo Jaws. Literally, like he's
yeah. I
doing.
I will like scream, "Don't run into the long grass" from the rooftops.
Yeah,
Like you know what I mean? It's great. And then like, I mean, it's still the same underlying theme of like it. Like they did a good job of like being like, oh, like hey, it's different now, but like capitalism still like
yeah.
they're still doing the same thing. Like
So
there's always going to be greedy corporations who want to try and turn things into money. You know what I mean? And
yeah, the video that I put out the other day is about this. It is about how the first movie and book, and we can talk about how since these are the two movies that are the only ones that are
it's on the books too.
books,
But
but like it's but yeah, it's the first movie is all about the capitalist nature of playing God, and then this one is the capitalist nature of capturing God, because you like Ludlow didn't do any of the shit that created the situation. He's just trying to
gain off
take
of it.
take the inherited success from his uncle's work. So it's like I think this is an even more sort of straightforward look at like the self-serving nature of capitalism. Whereas like the first one's obviously there, but this one is even more so because it's just like, oh, it's just the guy trying to take the spotlight without doing the work. So but yeah, and then there's the fact that like I think people just misunderstand the Lost World and what it's supposed to be more so than, because they're judging it as they just wanted more Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
and this is not that. That is a little more horror thriller. And
Yeah.
this is just an action adventure movie. This is a little bit more in the vein of like a Jules Verne-esque take on Jurassic Park. So yeah, I love it for the reasons that it is different, and I think that people tend to dislike it for the reasons that it's different, right?
I mean, frankly, like this is something when I rewatched it this week, I was like, this cast is in some ways better than the first cast. Like Vince Vaughn, like hot off of
Right off of
Swingers,
Swingers. Yep.
and like Julianne Moore. They
Coming
keep
coming
Julianne
off of Fugitive, actually.
like how did they get Julianne Moore to be in this movie? Like
It was literally
I
Spielberg's.
mean, Goldblum
No,
is
no, no.
still great.
Wait. It was literally Spielberg saw her in The Fugitive and said, "I
Oh,
want you in this movie." That is
hell yeah.
actually how it worked.
I it's one of those castings that like just has aged so well.
Yep.
Because like I mean like everybody in the first movie's done stuff, but I think when I think of Sam Neill and Laura Dern and like to some degree, Jeff, like I'm like, oh, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But like when I think of Vince Vaughn, I don't think of The Lost World. When I think of Julianne Moore, I don't think of The Lost World. Like I'm like, oh, these are like people they'd like were like that's just Steven, like whoever was the who grabbed, like if, I don't know if it was Spielberg all the way, but they nailed it,
Yeah.
like picking these people, you know?
What's interesting is Vince Vaughn is still playing Vince Vaughn in this, but it's before he like overdid that, where it's like it was before he reached Wedding Crashers level of just being Vince Vaughn on screen. He's not
Yeah,
like
it was pre Judd Apatow, like
yeah,
that run he went on.
and so
Um,
he is actually the perfect version. I think they tried to recapture him in this movie in Jurassic Park 3 with Billy, and then just didn't manage to do it at all. But
we'll get to Jurassic Park 3.
yeah,
I also like I always butcher his last name, Pete Postlethwaite.
Postlethwaite, yeah.
Postlethwaite, yeah. He's great.
Roland is
That's like
amazing.
having been like to South Africa on safari and stuff, like I've met this man in
Yep.
some kind of thing, and like he's just like the whole like
Need to point out you didn't go on a hunting safari. You went on
no, I
a
did
watching
not.
safari.
No, absolutely not. I did not try to hunt any wildlife at all.
Yeah.
No, the opposite, in fact. But everything he like does and says is very much like he's like, I don't care. I'm just here to get. I want to like hunt the biggest carnivore. Like that whole like thing is such. It's such a.
It's Moby
Like,
Dick.
it's so believable. Like yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a perfect analogy. Yeah, and it's just like this dude doesn't care about any of the other crap. He's just like, I'm here for my trophy, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
And like even at the end, he's like, oh, I can't remember the line he says. He says like, I've witnessed enough death. I've been
Yeah.
I've been in the company of death enough or something like that. It's just like
It's as
his
Ludlow
perfect-
is telling him he single-handedly saved the company and that he
Yeah.
is offering him a job at the San Diego park. And he says, I've witnessed enough death that like he's
Something about
basically
being in the company of death. Like that.
Yeah, it's him getting the white whale and being like, I'm done. Like there's no more.
And that's like in itself, that is to a degree admirable. You know what I mean? Like there are these people who like want to climb Everest and they work all like they climb all these mountains to get ready for Everest, and then they climb Everest, and they're like, cool, I've accomplished my goal.
Right.
And like you know, I think big game hunting is reprehensible, but like I admire that someone is like, I'm gonna do this, and then
I
they
know
do
when
it.
enough is enough.
Yeah, correct.
Which is, in theory, like the opposite of the Ludlow situation, which is enough is never enough. The capitalist nature of this is him
Never-ending
wanting
greed,
more
right?
and more and more. And so, yeah, it's an interesting juxtaposition between those two characters, because it's not like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Like he's not a good guy, but he's not a fully villain character. Like Ludlow is through this whole movie is just like a shitbag suit who you want to hate. He's a grease bag, like always, like yeah. So it's interesting to see a character that has a little more gray going on with him, because this movie is more so than the first movie a little more straightforward with itself. It is like you're not trying to unravel these mysteries and figure out
you don't
stuff.
you don't need to understand how the dinosaurs are made.
Exactly. All that is
Like
out
all
the
the
window.
science is already done. Like everybody saw Jurassic Park, so you don't
Yeah.
have to like explain what's going on.
And that's what they spent the first 40 minutes of that movie doing.
Yeah,
So,
pretty much. I mean, the book was more
way yeah.
yeah.
That's what's funny is I think that the first movie is the better version like of the book, and I think with The Lost World, the movie is the better version of the book, save for I think Sarah is a stronger character in the book, but but it's also completely different from the book.
I'm very partial to the scene in the Lost World book where I think they have Kelly in the cage and the raptors are like kicking her.
Yeah, the high hide when they're actually coming up.
And she's like on the motorcycle chasing the raptors. That scene, like they
Yeah.
should have put that shit. I'm sorry, that shit was fucking.
Well, that's
like,
what's
I remember
funny,
being,
too.
Like 10 reading that.
That's what's funny too is they're constantly still taking from these books and putting them into movies. Like in the Lost World, there's a bunch of stuff from the first book that didn't make it into the first book. Like the T-Rex licking thing is actually like that happens to Tim in the book.
Right.
And actually, I think it, if I remember correctly, wraps around his neck and starts to strangle him. But yeah, it's right. Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting to see them continue to do that, and I think we can actually use that to lead into Jurassic Park 3, which is it has it's a different dinosaur, but the river attack is from the first book as well.
Correct. Yeah,
and also the theme park, but whatever. The
the whole
Studios.
I mean, like the pterodactyl thing exists in the book, or what in the books, I believe, and doesn't make it until the third movie.
Right. Yeah. And that's,
or at least the area of the park does.
Yeah. And I will, now that we're on Jurassic Park 3, I have fun with this movie, but is certainly my least favorite of all of them, including all the Jurassic World movies so far. It's just with the Lost World, it manages to balance like the fun, excitement, action stuff with still having a little bit of meat on the bones, with like a little bit of story to actually get involved with.
Character development, and
there's no story or character development in the third movie whatsoever. It is all just action beat, action beat, action beat.
It's classic, like there's a kid who's lost, we're gonna go get him, but thrown into Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And like frankly, I'm not gonna defend this movie to the death. I like this movie too. This is
a fun movie.
I remember in the theater seeing the Spinosaurus like fight the T-Rex was fucking rad. Like hearing it break its neck, I like gasped.
Yeah.
And like the same thing when they use the raptors use the guy as bait. I remember being like, do not get out of that. Like I was like, don't get out of the tree.
Yeah.
Like I've seen these movies. Like I know. And like it's a good popcorn movie. It's a perfectly
yeah.
And I think I feel similarly to you. This is probably my least favorite. But I think it goes back to the original point, which is that I will pay $20 to see any Jurassic Park movie they make, because all I want to see is dinosaurs on the screen doing dinosaur things.
Right.
And like as long as it's you're not like torturing me with the other stuff, I'm cool. So like
even some of the dinosaur stuff in this movie gets a little torturous though.
Some of it's pretty bad, yeah.
Like the cell phone's ringing. Who has the cell phone? And then the Spinosaur is just looking.
Yeah.
And
it also like doesn't immediately break through the fence. It like takes its time to break. Like there's little like, listen, I get it. You're trying to. This was also like a period of time in movies where it was all jump scares. Like all the movies that were coming out, like all the horror movies were jump scary.
It was shooting while the script was not even close to being completed. Like they were just, I think that it's lacking in story because there literally wasn't a story for them to base this movie on. They were just shooting scenes where they're like, we need you to get from this point to this point, and that's it. And it's a bummer because like as fun as it is, I need something in these movies to mean something. Like for me to want to go back to them. I will watch Jurassic Park 3 if like you were talking about before, if it's the weekend and it's raining out and it's on TV kind of thing. It's the only reason I revisited this for this was because I wanted to get it all in before.
Perspective is important, I think, when comparing these.
Yeah.
And then this movie still has great scenes. Like this, like the scene like in the compound with the raptors is still great. Like the raptor like getting trapped behind the door and like calling to the other raptors. Like all that stuff's cool. Like the river scene's great. I think like this, unfortunately for me, is like the start of like we need a bigger, scarier dinosaur vein that runs through the rest of these movies
100%.
That I don't like. Like I don't need anything bigger. Like all I needed was the T-Rex in the first one. Why do we have to like make a bigger dinosaur and then an even bigger like?
Yeah, and at least with
the same thing happens in Jaws. Like all of a sudden there's two. Like what are we doing? Like you just need one giant great white shark. They're everywhere. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
now it's in 3D. But yeah, the thing that I actually like, I'll skip forward before we actually move on to it, but I'll say this about the Jurassic World movies with doing that is at least they're putting it into the plot, and it's not just a bigger dinosaur that we didn't know about. Like, at least it's like
yeah,
there's a reason.
just like, especially because, if you do any research into what a Spinosaurus was, they found like one partially
Yeah,
complete skeleton in the history of mankind, and it got destroyed in World War II.
yeah,
And like, we're gonna just run with it. And it's just like, man, like you could have done like the same plot just in Isla Sorna without the Spinosaurus, and it probably would have been as good a movie.
well,
Like
and
you could have done more. You could have done more with the pterodactyls or whatever. Like that scene's good.
yeah,
Like other than like the
the blue screen's terrible, but yeah, it's
blue
yeah,
screen's terrible, and like the whatever you want to call it, the stuff with the parachute.
yeah, it's rough.
I'm just like, all right, Jesus, like we're jumping the shark.
The thing with this movie is, they Spielberg kind of caused this to happen by saying, I'm not going to direct any more Jurassic Park movies, so I'm going to shove the mainland stuff into the tail end of The Lost World. And
Right.
like, that is one of my gripes is like, say what you want about the San Diego
We
thing.
didn't talk
Like,
about that scene.
it's whatever. It's fine and fun. It's more this movie than it was like the rest of The Lost World. But if he had held himself back a little bit and said, you know what, this movie ends when they get off, like they're leaving the island, just like every other Jurassic movie.
You just do
1,
it.
2, and 3, it's all like they get off the island. That is the end of the movie.
Well, I mean, 3 does the callback, right, where they're they have they're
Exactly.
on the helicopter, and then like you see the pterodactyls instead of seeing the pelicans.
Right. And so
They should have-
this with The Lost World, it should have been them being like, okay, they're on the helicopter and leaving, and you see Julianne Moore say, "Oh my god," and it shows them captured, like they have the T-Rex.
Rex, yeah.
That's where you end, and then the third movie is actually the mainland stuff.
Funny that honestly, like that's all the hook I need to see Jurassic Park 3 is
Right.
like, oh, they have a T-Rex. Boom. And that, well, but that's honestly, like, if you think about it, the way we make movies now, that's how it would have been done, like in 2020, right? Like,
Right.
because like you got to set up a trilogy, you got to set up all these different, like, especially now, like, everything's got a TV show too, and all these different layers, and like, there would definitely be like a TV show on Netflix and like whatever, and
Yeah. Well, Peacock.
it's a perfectly decent movie. There are scenes that I like you said, if it's on TV, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah.
If there's not something else on, like I'll watch Jurassic Park 3.
What's funny is like I don't think of it as a Jurassic movie. I just think of it as like a general like monster movie, and then I'm just like, all right, fine, whatever. But if I let myself think too much about it being a Jurassic movie, I'm like, man, it's not great. I feel similarly to Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Like if you didn't have Indiana Jones attached to that, I'd be perfectly fine watching this dumb, like fun
You'd be like,
adventure
oh,
movie.
it's Uncharted the movie
It's
before
it's them
Uncharted.
trying to make an Indiana Jones and not quite doing it, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Jurassic Park 3. I feel like, and I mean this like in a positive way. It's gonna sound like an insult, but it's really not. But if your favorite Jurassic movie is Jurassic Park 3, your favorite Scream movie is Scream 3.
Right.
It is you just want the campiest one possible, and then that's
Campy is a good way to describe this movie. And like, it's not too campy, but it's campy enough.
yeah. It like
Honestly,
disassociates with the other movies.
I don't know if you've seen Maverick yet, but I just saw Top Gun Maverick
It's
last
my
week, and I was
favorite
like,
movie of the year.
it's so good. Sidebar, it's so good. Go see it in IMAX.
Yeah. While you have the
I
chance,
thought Top Gun
because
2 was gonna be
Jurassic
what
takes
Jurassic
it over
Park
this
3
week.
was.
Yeah.
I literally was like, this is gonna be so campy, like it's not gonna have any emotional whatever, and then it was the opposite. But like, I was like, this is like, but I was still like, I will see this movie in IMAX. I will
Yeah.
pay for the camp. like bury me in like take my breath away. I don't care, like whatever. Like
And then it wasn't in
thank God. It it's fine. It in hindsight, I'm sure it would have been a direct to video release. You know what I mean? Like
Right. It's
we're lucky this franchise didn't go straight into like Tremors realm
right. Yeah.
after this one.
So what's an even bigger bummer for me about it is I love Joe Johnston's work.
Yeah.
He manages to do like he was great with like monster stuff in the background because he was a Lucasfilm guy and he was a special effects guy for them. And then he went on to start making his own movies, and I like The Rocketeer is amazing. And
talked about the Rocketeer before.
Yeah, and
we don't need to get into it, but like it's a great movie.
Yeah, and then years later he goes on to make Captain America: The First Avenger, and that is basically a spiritual successor to The Rocketeer. Just the whole vibe of that whole movie, and that's his wheelhouse when in the director's chair, and it's a bummer that like something he's very good at is these like special effects monster style movies when he's actually doing the physical aspect of the special effects stuff. He's not my go-to guy for directing it. And it's a bummer because it's like he is one of Spielberg's guys and he actually approached Spielberg to get permission to make a third Jurassic movie. And that's where it all came together. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. And then after it happened, we had to wait for years and years and years, 12 years for Jurassic World. And I still, so revisiting it, I'm not as high as I was the first couple years, 2014? So 15. So like 2015, 2016, I was really high on it, and I've come down a little bit on it now, but I'm still like, it serves its exact purpose. It does what The Force Awakens needed to do, which is just recapture a feeling.
The comp is really easy, and it's The Force Awakens, where like, it's not like a beat for beat remake. Neither of them are, but like, you know what it did is every kid who missed the first Jurassic Park was like, oh crap, we can make dinosaurs with mosquito blood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and
it recaptured.
Like, they look great. Yeah. And like, I think the most interesting thing about the new trilogy is like, Chris Pratt's kind of like skyrocket to like plateau of like
to now come down.
And to now coming down. He was in these like this and Guardians of the Galaxy, and everyone was like, hell yeah, like the dude from Parks and Rec is killing it. And then now we're all like, okay, dude, we get it, man.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
you shouldn't be both Mario and Garfield. That's not. Yeah. Come on. It's I would put this movie probably behind The Lost World, but like still leaps and bounds above Jurassic Park 3, where it's like it's still a really solid movie with a really good vibe, and it's just.
I watched this with my sister and my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew, like on their really nice TV, like in their basement with the sound, and like I hadn't seen it probably since in like 4 years, and was just like, oh, this movie, like when you watch, the thing is, like, I watch a lot of film, and like I like watching like really deep, like whatever, like, I can go the other way. It doesn't have to just be popcorn for me.
Well, we did work at a restaurant that was literally across the street from like an indie theater.
4 years. Yeah. And like
I saw Birdman on break on a double. And I like ran back over.
I went with my friend Mariel, who worked at the coffee shop, once a week to see a movie. I saw 2 of the Before movies at that movie theater.
Yeah.
And like a lot of good movies. This movie, like, you need to watch this movie with a 14-year-old.
Oh yeah.
For the first time to appreciate this movie more.
Yeah.
Because like that's what happened when we saw the first one. Like, I think that we as a society or whatever take all
we live in a
stuff.
society.
we take all this stuff too seriously. Like I'm
Yeah.
like I mean, like a really good example is is The Last Jedi. Like people lost their minds, and I'm like, I went to that movie and like
It's the
I love Star
second
Wars
best
too.
Star Wars movie.
It I think it's the first best Star Wars movie. But it's like how can you go see a movie that is so artistically different and not and be like you didn't follow the code? Like you know what I mean? Like
You
and this
are
movie
my brother,
all you gotta see
Anakin.
is a bunch of preteens watch this movie and be like have their world rocked
Yeah.
for you to understand why this is a good movie.
Yeah.
Jurassic World is a good movie. It's not perfect.
No.
Like
Well,
I
that's
don't need the motorcycle riding raptor scene,
see
but like
that's where with these movies I'm like totally cool with them getting weird as hell because we already have a perfect movie. We already have the first movie. None of them will ever compete with that movie. Just make a cool thing. Like as long
yeah,
as it's
make a fun movie.
yeah, a fun movie that like keeps me invested for that 2 hour span. Like that's all I need.
I just
And
as long as my eye rolls are under 5 per movie, I'm happy. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And
And
like
that's the thing is there
I
were eye rolls in this movie, but
yeah.
they're done well. Like
Yeah. No, I mean like
the little bit of
the
John Williams
motorcycle raptor
music
scene,
coming
I'm
in.
like, oh my God. And then like the raptors turn on them and I'm like, see, this is why I paid to see this movie.
Yeah.
Like the scene where it's like all the SWAT dudes and then the raptors turn and I'm like, this is all I want.
Yeah.
All I want every Jurassic movie is for there to be a scene where all of a sudden the raptors go rogue and just kill a bunch of people and there's my $20
Yeah.
Universal. Like here's my $30,
And
whatever.
the stuff they did beyond that, which is like you have the nostalgia feed going on, which is like there was clearly a ton of that. Like you open the gates, you do like all that stuff. The stuff that actually
into Disneyland, you know, that's
exactly
what they did
and
for the first hour of this movie.
the stuff that they did the best with that is actually, and this is where people I think scoff the most, but I think is done the best for the nostalgia stuff, is when the two kids find their way into the old park.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
you just
That,
have
I
the hint,
might have shed a single tear.
yeah,
Are you
the
like,
hint of John Williams music coming up as they like his foot comes down and you see it's on the banner and like it's just so like yeah, it's heavy-handed. That's good. That's a feature. It's not a bug. Like come on.
that's a really good example of how you do a callback. Like
And
like
he
it
lit it on
wasn't
fire.
like
He lit it on fire
heavy-handed, but
saying
it wasn't like a sledgehammer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
but that's the thing is they then said, and you know what? You have to say goodbye to Jurassic Park with this series because I'm lighting that banner on fire and using it as a torch. Like we are honoring the moment and then putting it to rest and we are moving forward. And that is the moment where they're like, from here on out, yeah, that's where the Raptors start to become soldiers. That is where like it's where you go balls to the walls weird, and that's I'm happy with that. I want them to just do weird shit with this franchise now that isn't just more Jurassic Park or an attempt at more Jurassic Park because we're never going to get that. No matter how hard you try.
I'm so glad they have like bringing it back to Jaws. Like thank God they haven't tried to reboot that franchise because like you're never going to do better than Jaws.
No.
Like even Jaws 2. Jaws 2 is also a perfect movie. You're never going to do better than those two movies.
The Revenge is okay.
It's the last act of 2 is as good as the last act of 1. Like maybe like it's a little slower to start, but like my point is like there's like you're gonna have to do a completely different spin to make Jaws work. You're gonna have to do like a 10-episode like HBO show called, and it's gonna have to be about PTSD or something to get me invested. Like you know what I mean? Like it definitely like when I think of the Jurassic World trilogy, I'm just like, oh, a new Jurassic World's coming out. Let me get my popcorn. Like I'm gonna eat a gummy. I'm gonna get some popcorn. I'm gonna have a great time. Like it doesn't matter. Like I know it's gonna be fun. You know?
Yeah, and so now we'll transfer into Fallen Kingdom, which I think this is the closest they've come. I am 100% in the minority with this one. I love Fallen Kingdom. I love Fallen Kingdom.
I like Fallen Kingdom fine.
It is as close to the quality for me of the first two movies as they're ever going to get. I think we'll see with Dominion. Yeah. That for Dominion, I'm legitimately just hoping that it's very pretty to look at. Like, that's all I really want for it. But like,
are you seeing an IMAX?
Yeah.
You going to Reading?
No, I'm going to Methuen.
Okay. I'm 100. Like, after seeing, I saw Maverick at Reading, and I was like, I will see every movie in this movie theater.
It's the Jordan's Furniture upcharge is it's a little easier.
It was $16 for a matinee, so I was like done. Every movie I see from now on.
Well, AMC, I can include it all in the A-list thing, so it's
I mean, I pre-pandemic, I was
Yeah.
On the A-list thing and seeing a movie once a week, and like it was totally worth it.
I just started it back up with Top Gun. That's my trajectory is now there.
As you should.
Yeah.
As everyone should.
But yeah, with this movie, I get why people don't love it. Like it's more messy, but it is more in line with like The Lost World to me than 3 or Jurassic World were, as far as that goes, because it's more about just like, hey, they need to go to the island because it's about to blow up and they need to try to save some dinosaurs. And then what do they have to do after that? They have to survive a monster in the house horror movie. Perfect. I am having so much fun with both of those things. And just visually speaking, I think it's a more interesting movie to look at than the first movies. The style of it.
It's very in it, like, you know, to bring it back to Star Wars, like, one was like, we're gonna recreate this nostalgia, and 2, Fallen Kingdom is like Rian Johnson being like, we're gonna get weird.
Yeah.
And like the first act is I like a lot because like that's what I want out of a Jurassic. Like I want to see a volcano exploding and like dinosaurs and like everybody trying to do all these things.
It's what they thought they were doing with Jurassic World 3 or Jurassic Park 3 rather.
The second act didn't hit as hard for me. It's more about James Cromwell's character than it is anything else. Like, why are we just like, we're 5 movies in, we're just hearing about this other guy, and like that whole part of it is what bothers me about these movies. Like we're trapped in a house with a super monster part, I'm down for.
Yeah.
Like Blue versus Super Raptor all day.
So you know that whole sequence with the Indoraptor like stalking through the house, that is almost a 1-for-1 homage to the 70s Dracula movie.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew that he pulled from a lot. He was like super into like.
Well, J.A. Bayona is a horror director for the most part.
Yeah.
But it is almost 1-for-1. Like I'll find you the tweet that I did about it. I posted a little video with them playing at the same time, and it is so good. But yeah, I feel you on the James Cromwell stuff, but I also appreciate it because it's them getting so weird. Like that was the roadblock between Hammond and like going further than the dinosaur cloning. It was like somebody that didn't have that
moral code,
that enough is enough thing, where it's like, no, now I want to create humans. And so that's where I'm just like, yeah, just keep giving me that weird shit and I'm fine with it.
I mean, I walked out of the movie and was like, that wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but I was still glad I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
You know, like
that. So that is, my major gripe with this movie is the fact that because they leaned into the horror in the final act, it is the tightest frame of any movie. It is the shortest frame. It's because they want to convey that claustrophobic ending. So it's a little bit hard to get really cool big like the moment with the brachiosaur where the original brachiosaur from the first movie that stands up on its hind legs also stands up on its hind legs here and perishes.
Yeah.
It.
I might have shed a tear.
Oh, of course. But like visually speaking, that should take up the whole screen vertically. Like that should be huge. But it's it's not, because the whole ending of this movie needed to be tight.
Claustrophobic. I totally.
And so that's like the only real gripe about I have with this movie is that kind of thing, where everything else I'm just like, nah, the rest is just fun.
Listen, it's better than Jurassic World 3 or Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah,
I think
and
like less campy. It's not campy.
This is
There's campiness to it, but
this is the movie that Jurassic Park 3 thinks it is.
Yes,
that's
like it's scarier.
Oh yeah,
it's the scariest one. Like my niece like struggled with this one, and she's 10, and like I get it.
The ending is an actual horror movie. Like the first movie is technically a horror movie, but it's like this is playing into the tropes of horror a lot more. It is playing up those things that they know scare people. And the design of the Indoraptor, like the Indominus Rex is like, cool design. That's fine. Whatever. Like it's just a big monster. That's fine. Sure. This is actually a scare, like, but when you go so big with that, it like takes away the scary a little bit. This being a more like reasonable size somehow makes it more scary.
I mean, listen, like, speaking to the franchise as a whole, like, I think the T-Rex is like the big, like the big draw.
It's the mascot.
These movies are about the Raptors.
Yeah,
the Raptors are the big bad in all of these movies.
Until
like the T-Rex is like the bad for one scene in the first one,
until
and then
they
you
flip
get the
it with
Raptors
the world
murdering people for the rest of the movies. Like
until you get to World, which then they become the heroes.
Well, I mean, there's Blue is the hero.
Well, yeah, but she's got her squad.
Murdered a bunch of people. Like
they also died at the end of that first movie. So whatever.
It's definitely like the direction of the Indominus Rex. Like, I like it. I don't love it, and then like the Indoraptor is better.
The better version,
like because like the scariest part of the whole first movie, other than like the T-Rex like knocking the stepping on the Jeep, and they're underneath the Jeep, is the Raptor opening the door to the kitchen.
Yeah,
and like you were just like, oh shit, it can open doors,
also,
and that's like we're off to the races.
Yeah, and I have to point out that anytime somebody says that Jurassic World or Fallen Kingdom are dumb movies, I have to say, so is Jurassic Park. They literally have a line where they say, unless they learn to open doors. And then it cuts to a raptor opening a door. That is cheesy as hell and dumb, and it's good. And it's like, cheesy isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think people need to lean into that more. And I think that's why I enjoy the Jurassic World movies so much, because they are cheesy as hell. And by the way, just this past November, I took the most ill-advised trip possible down to Florida. And I went to Universal for the first time. I had booked it when numbers seemed to be getting better, and then they quickly got worse. So then I was just stuck with a trip.
4 months.
Yeah. But I rode the Velocicoaster. It is the best roller coaster I've ever been on. It is unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever go to Florida again in my life, but if I do, I mean, listen, I reiterate, like, every time the T-Rex is on the scene, it's a wow moment.
Yep.
I think the Raptors are the driving force in these movies. Like,
yeah,
they're like the biggest bad. Even like, you know, like, and I guess my point is, like, World, they try to go away from it into the Indominus, and it's just not as good. It's just not as good.
I do think that that's part of the narrative that they were setting up with this trilogy, is the fact that they're on the meta level saying, like, more teeth And I think that that's them actually saying, like, yeah, we know that that's a bad thing, but we have to tell you that in story so that you know we know. And that's why it's killed off. It's not like they escape it and it's still alive like the T-Rex. They actually kill it off. And then they bring in the Indoraptor, which is, like we said, the better version of the thing. So they needed to downsize from the meta of more teeth.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like, I'm excited. Like, the trailer played for Dominion during Maverick, and I was like, and I'd already seen it. Like, anytime a trailer comes out, I watch it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I will be back.
I hadn't seen it in IMAX at that point, though.
I was like, put me right back in this seat in 2 weeks, like in this exact seat for this movie. Like, and the short film, I can't remember the name of it, that they released.
Well, there were two. There was the prologue, which is the one where the T-Rex is at the movie theater or the drive-in theater, and then there's the
one at the
one
campsite?
and then so that's the one that ends with, like, it starts with the sort of just footage of dinosaurs in prehistoric times, and then it turns into the drive-in theater thing. The other one was I can't remember the name of it, but it was a family at a campground.
Yeah, the Ankylosaurus and the like, I want to say it's Carnosaurus. Listen, I'm not as obsessed with dinosaurs as I used to be, but like they have like the fight at the campsite. Yeah, and like it looks like it's like Yosemite.
Yeah, and
that's all I want. That's all I want from these movies. Like,
well, what's
there's
crazy,
a family like at Yellowstone, and all of a sudden a raptor kills a bison or something. You know what I mean? Like,
well, what's crazy about that too is like that the one with the family at the campsite that was just put on NBC. The other thing was
like
IMAX.
A Super Bowl run, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, it was just like on TV though. Like, it wasn't a movie theater thing, whatever. It was just there it was, and then they put it on YouTube, and it was like I believe that the prologue where they're actually in the prehistoric times one was in front of Fast 9 last year in IMAX for a week before it went online. So like that was the big deal one. That's sort of the differential between that I do for those.
Because I didn't see that. I did. That was the first movie I saw in theaters after the pandemic.
Everything. Well, during, but yeah.
Well, I mean, like,
as you started doing stuff again. As you started doing stuff again.
The first thing I did when we shut down was rewatch every Fast and the Furious movie, because I was like, well, I have 2 months to kill. I might as well start here. And then I was like, okay, Fast, like,
I have,
Fast and, I'm in.
And now I have 3 years to kill.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, what's your favorite? Well, I need your favorite quote from any of these movies and your favorite scene.
My favorite scene is probably Nedry's death. Like, the Dilophosaurus is just unbelievably good. I when you were saying there was the one scene that scared you in the theater, the raptor scene, sure, but like for me it was just the jump scare of the frock coming out, like, hits so hard.
It's a great scene,
and that's why.
It too.
Yeah,
Wayne Knight like crushes that scene.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm most excited for Dominion is the return of the Dilophosaur. So, yeah. Favorite.
Please don't ruin this for us.
Yeah. Favorite line. That's tough. I think one of this isn't my favorite line, but I think my favorite sort of underrated joke kind of thing is the running gag in The Lost World, where when Vince Vaughn and Jeff Goldblum are first on the island and they're searching for Sarah and yelling out, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah Harding. And then later on in the movie, when they're getting to, like, they separate from Nick, and he is, he's a little bit forward in front of them, and then they get attacked by raptors, but he is already in the thing. Before they're attacked by raptors, they're yelling out, Nick, Nick, and Jeff Goldblum goes, Nick Van Owen. And it's just such a, like, funny, good joke. I don't know if it's my favorite line. I just like the
good.
callback of it. It's a very good thing. But what about you?
Um, I think like at the end of the day, like when the power goes out and they get trapped in front of the T-Rex, like the cup with the water
Yeah.
is just like I remember my dad specifically for this movie and ironically Top Gun 1 bought an insanely expensive surround sound system when these movies came out on VHS
Yeah.
or it might even have been Laserdisc for that scene. I vividly remember the first time we watched it and my couch would shake during that
Yeah.
scene. And that's like the scene that's like seared in my brain. Like that's like, I think that scene's like 18 minutes long. It's probably one of the best 18-minute stretches of like action cinema ever. It's so good.
Well, it's
Like,
also it's one of the best usage of, and I would say this about The Last Jedi as well. The best uses of dropping music and just letting the
oh,
environment be the
creaking
sound.
fence, the
Yeah.
rain, like the sound of them sinking into the mud. Like, God bless the sound engineers of that movie.
The
Like
breaking of the glass that wasn't supposed to break.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, like the sound. Like, we did not mention. We talked about John Williams. We talked about Spielberg. All
Yeah.
this stuff. Coming up with the noises these dinosaurs make. Bless those people. They were
Yep.
like, we're gonna take 8 different animals and just blend it together, and it's gonna be terrifying. And it's exactly that. It's great.
And I mentioned James
Um,
Cameron. He uses a bunch of these sound effects in Avatar as well. A bunch of the creatures are just these sounds.
I was just watching something, and something made a raptor's noise, and I was like
Yeah.
the bark. I was like, I know that noise.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jurassic Park sound effects are our Wilhelm scream.
exactly.
It like shuts us
Like,
down and we just go, wait a second.
I mean, I still like every time I giggle every time I hear a Wilhelm. Like
Yeah.
we're still at it. Quote. I think the best quote in this whole series is, I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them. That's just
The
like
delivery specifically is what sells it, yeah.
There was a Twitter thread recently of like
I saw you respond to Pete.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Pete was the one who was, and Pete's not even like a big Jurassic Park head,
Yeah.
but he was like, "Yo, this line," and I was like, "That line is so like," and even the response of like, "Thanks, Dad," is like, "Mwah."
Yeah.
But I am super partial to Mr. Hammond. After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. And he's like, so have I.
So have I.
Like, the way Attenborough delivers that is like, he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. I'm good. It's great.
Yeah,
Um,
I every time I revisit these movies, which I revisit the first and second movie like twice a year, basically, like more than Lord of the Rings, frankly. But
They're easier to watch. I listen. As you will know, there are not a lot of people who love Lord of the Rings more than me. I would put on Jurassic Park before I'd put on The Fellowship 9 times out of 10.
well, it's the time of year. It needs to be the right time of year for Lord of the Rings, where this is just whenever.
Christmas. You gotta be
Thanksgiving
like
is me. Yeah, Thanksgiving is when I go. But yeah, the revisiting them, I always want to revisit the books, and it's one of those things where I'm like, man, they did such a better job of. Hammond is a bad guy, but like they made him still sympathetic in the movie, whereas like in the
He's
book,
like a grandpa.
yeah, in the book, he's like you're pretty happy when he dies in the first book. Like he's and like Henry, that's the thing, is they kept people alive in that first movie that like all of them die in the book. Henry Wu,
the book's brutal. Both of the books are brutal. Like,
yeah, but like the way Henry Wu dies is like that's like some Resident Evil shit. It's awesome, but like yeah, so
they
it's
bring that back for Dominion. I like like,
Yeah.
like, oh hey, we haven't used this one yet
yeah.
because they used the compy scene in the Lost World for, I think it's Dieter. Like that's what happens to Hammond. He like breaks
Exactly,
his leg
yeah.
falling down a hill, and then the compies get him. And
Well, but the thing with the compies in the books is the people don't die from them like eating them.
they're venomous, right?
They get the bacteria in their mouth is what kills them. So like Hammond's
Just like-
death is slow.
Yeah,
It's real
it's
slow.
another layer of, it's like the plants being venomous. Like
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah.
Like Crichton was great. Crichton you know, it's unfortunate that he died when he did, because like he would be cleaning house right now with like rights to his stuff to
Yeah.
like HBO or Showtime or whatever. And like,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
he even
outside of like
he
Congo, all
is.
his stuff slaps. Like Andromeda Strain is a great,
Yeah.
like
Well,
Timeline
but
is a
that's the
great
thing.
book. The movie sucks.
You were
Like,
saying like HBO, like he'd be selling stuff to HBO like crazy. They have Westworld.
yeah, yeah, Westworld's a great
Like
example. Yeah, yeah.
it didn't
But like
stop after he died, but yeah.
like he just was a I loved his books when I was like early in my teens, like, and like I don't think he gets talked about enough as like a sci-fi writer, like compared to some of these other people, and like that's cool. Like there's a lot of really great authors out there, but like Jurassic Park is a great read.
What's
Like I read it last summer. It took me, I don't know, 4 days. I was just like,
yeah.
oh my God, this is
What's
so good.
funny though is like we were just talking about Lord of the Rings and Jurassic Park the movies, and it's I almost want to say Crichton not to like the level of Tolkien, but like reminds me of a sci-fi version of Tolkien where it's like it's very dense and descriptive.
Yeah.
Like
He paints the entire picture.
yeah,
It's not like we're walking down a cave. It's like you're in a compound and there's vines growing, and
yeah,
like the cicadas are just coming out. Like
yeah.
no, they're great. They're like, I was actually at a guest at the bar who was reading The Fellowship the other night, and I was like, this like, listen, The Fellowship is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. It is a slog to read. The other books are better, if you want my opinion. But like listening to that man talk about like reading about him describing the Shire, like
Yeah,
every fantasy writer ever has ripped that off. Like
yeah,
since that book came out,
yeah.
they're like, "Ooh, I gotta describe like what this environment's like. Let me read Tolkien for 2 hours, and then I'll come back." You know what I mean?
Just write a
But
million adjectives.
yes,
Yeah,
here, there's a tavern. We're gonna spend 14 pages describing it.
yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for Dominion. I'm gonna see it. We're gonna do the podcast, and then I'm gonna go see it with my sister's family, and it'll probably be more fun with the kids than it would be just
well,
me.
and you'll know what's coming, so you'll kind of be able to like look at them at the
Yeah,
right times and stuff. It's you were saying that earlier about seeing these movies with kids, and it's oddly enough, it is like reminds me of theme park stuff where it's like when I was a kid, going to Disney was about like seeing this huge like fantastical thing that is much bigger than me, and now going back, I haven't gone with like one of my nephews or anything, but like when I go to Disney World or Disneyland, it's about seeing the kids on Main Street seeing it for the first time.
yeah, like, and they're just like,
Yeah, and so that's what this is now, is like it's just sharing it with the next round of folks coming up, and it's yeah.
frankly the same. It was the same seeing the newest Star Wars trilogy. Like I
Yep.
went with them, and like, you know, they were okay. I like the Last Jedi a lot, obviously, but like you, seeing them with kids who like have never seen a Star Wars movie in the theater. Like I remember seeing Phantom Menace as much as I remember seeing
Yep.
Jurassic Park. Like and ironically, my sister also snuck me to see that. But like, it, that's what it's. There's a level of movie that's who the audience is, and it's not just like Pixar movies.
Yeah.
Like it can be like movies like these where it's just like, oh, are you 14 years old and you want to like you love dinosaurs? We're gonna go see like let me put this on for you, and like
Yeah.
that's like I just think we need to collectively like stop taking this stuff too seriously and just like enjoy the fact that like there are artists out there who spend their lives digitally creating dinosaurs to put them on a movie screen to let us like go see it in a movie theater. Are you watching the Apple TV show, by the way? This is a sidebar.
I'm not. I want to.
Okay,
I just
one of
don't
my
have
employees is
Apple TV.
obsessed, and he is not like a Jurassic Park person really.
Yeah.
So I'm very intrigued, but I don't have Apple TV, so I was gonna ask and see what you if you had seen it or what you thought.
As
But
soon
I'm
as
we're gonna
I
have
have
to.
a reason to go back to, I watched the Fraggle Rock show with a free trial that they had, so I no longer have a free trial, so I don't have Apple TV anymore. But I will go back to it once I have a chance to actually like invest in it.
We'll do a redux. We'll do like a part 3. Hey, here's this other thing that has
Yeah,
dinosaurs.
with John Hammond's real life brother.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, Cool. Well, that was a good time. That's much longer than I actually think I usually
Wildly
go.
unsurprised given our history with the franchise.
That's true. But yeah, we'll be back for Jurassic World Dominion real soon. That'll be this coming Monday. But yeah, other than that, we do have other many podcasts on this YouTube channel and on podcast services everywhere. I do trailer reactions on this YouTube channel, and I also have just released the second episode of my video essays, which is about the Lost World and capturing God. So please watch that as well. Other than that, thank you again for coming on the show, Ryan, and goodbye.